My parents didn't invite me and my kids to Christmas. Mom said, "Your brother is bringing his girlfriend to meet the family. He doesn't want your kids there. They'd ruin the perfect image." I quietly said, "I understand," and hung up. The silence that followed those words wasn't just quiet. It was the sound of something fundamental breaking. I sat in my kitchen on a Tuesday in December, staring at the microwave clock while my 7-year-old daughter Mia's construction paper chain hung proudly across our bookshelf, and my 5-year-old son Theo slept on the couch in dinosaur pajamas, a smear of cocoa still on his lip from our evening hot chocolate ritual. Perfect image. The phrase echoed in my head as I processed what had just happened. My own mother had just told me that my children, her grandchildren, were too messy, too loud, too real for my brother Zach's new girlfriend's aesthetic preferences. What my family didn't know was that I'm a senior art director at a mid-sized creative agency, pulling in $95,000 a year. More importantly, I've spent the last 15 years learning how to make things look good without lying, how to enhance reality without erasing the beautiful, chaotic truth of it. The irony wasn't lost on me that they wanted to literally crop my kids out of the family picture for someone else's Instagram perfect Christmas. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I scrolled through years of Christmas morning photos on my phone, wrapping paper stuck to tiny socked feet, the camera shake of real joy, Mia's gap-toothed grin as she held up her homemade ornaments, Theo's first Christmas when he was more interested in the boxes than the gifts. These weren't perfect images. They were something better. They were honest. The next morning, I got a text from Dad. "Don't take this personally." By noon, they were all on my porch anyway. No heads up, just the doorbell and a blur of winter coats. Mom, Dad, Zach, and the infamous girlfriend. Mom's face was tight enough to snap. I opened the door to find Zach looking like a walking lifestyle blog, and his girlfriend standing a half step forward like she owned the place. Perfect hair, perfect beige coat, phone already in her hand. She looked me up and down, then surveyed the paper chain behind me with obvious disdain. "So," she said, voice bright and artificially flat, "you're the one who keeps ruining the family brand." That's when I realized this wasn't really about Christmas at all. This was about a pattern that had been building for years, and I'd been too busy playing the reliable older brother to see it clearly. I've been the family's go-to problem solver since I was 19. When Dad's contractor forgot to pull permits and the city hit him with a $4,200 fine, I covered it. When Zach's first car died, because he thought oil changes were optional, I bought him a used Civic for $8,500 and never mentioned that I was still making payments when he sold it 6 months later to buy limited edition sneakers. My career is built on deadlines, brand strategy, and creative problem solving. Apparently, I'd been building their emergencies into my calendar like holidays, treating every family crisis as just another project to manage. When I got married, they showed up with opinions about the venue, the flowers, the cost. When I got divorced, they showed up with silence and judgment about my failure to make it work. But my kids brought me back to what actually mattered. Two small people who think sprinkling sugar on toast makes it a cake, who see magic in sidewalk chalk and cardboard boxes. My custody arrangement is 70-30, and Christmas Eve fell on my week this year. I'd already bought a pre-lit tree because real ones make me sneeze, already planned our tradition of pancakes for dinner, and letting them open one gift before bed. Zach is 32 and permanently performing success on social media. He posts close-ups of watches he can't afford and motivational quotes about grinding at 5 a.m. The reason he never looks tired is because other people do the actual grinding for him. Mom calls him entrepreneurial. I call it what it is. He texts me, "Bro, quick favor," about twice a month. I design marketing materials for a living, so guess who designed 3 logos for Zach's various business ventures? Guess who built his Shopify store, edited his product photos, and spent hours retouching his girlfriend's street photography to make trash bags and telephone wires disappear from the background? "You're so good at this stuff," they'd say. "We'll pay you once it takes off." It never took off, but somehow my photo credits always vanished. The financial manipulation in my family always wears a costume. We call it helping out, being there, or just until payday. The biggest costume is the word family itself. If you say no to family, you're selfish and cold. If family says no to you, You're being dramatic and oversensitive. 2 months before this Christmas debacle, I got a text from Mom. Could you add us to your phone plan? Ours is getting too expensive. I did the math, realized it would save them about $180 a month, and added them without thinking much of it. But it wasn't just phones. Netflix, then Hulu, then Dad's iPad mysteriously appeared on my Apple Music account. It's just streaming, Mom said when I mentioned it. You don't even notice. But I noticed plenty. I noticed when my Adobe Creative Cloud bill doubled because Zach had logged into my account on his laptop to download Photoshop for just a quick flyer. I noticed when he sent me an InDesign file that still had my account's stock image watermarks all over it. I really noticed when a $218 charge for a premium template bundle hit my business credit card at 3 a.m., and the vendor invoice matched an email forwarded from zackezcollective.io. Accident, he said when I confronted him. I thought it was still a free trial. I sent him a screenshot of the charge. He heart-reacted it and never mentioned paying me back. Meanwhile, Mom liked to rehearse a story about fairness whenever money came up. We supported you through art school, she'd say, conveniently forgetting that I worked nights at a campus print shop to pay tuition, while they gave me a suitcase and a be brilliant speech. Their support came in the form of leftover Christmas food wrapped in foil and dropped off at my dorm like some kind of performance of parental care. The girlfriend, Brooke, because of course her name is Brooke, had slid into the family dynamic around Thanksgiving. Blonde, smartphone permanently attached to her hand, with opinions about everything. I'd met her once at a brunch where she ordered the most photogenic item on the menu, cut it into geometric shapes for her Instagram story, and didn't eat a single bite. She told me she was a creative director for a candle company that sells one candle at a time for $89. What's the scent? I'd asked. Clean, she replied, as if that explained everything. Brooke believes in neutral palettes and children who only wear muted, Instagram-approved clothing. Mia wears a neon unicorn hoodie like it's armor. Theo thinks matching socks are a government conspiracy. My house photographs like real life, which Brooke called chaotic. Zach called not on brand. And Mom called something to work on. Standing on my porch that morning, the four of them looked like a corporate board meeting called to address my performance issues. Mom went first, voice pitched to maximum martyrdom. You made me feel terrible last night. I barely slept. That sounds like a you problem, I replied calmly. Dad stepped in with his usual conflict avoidance strategy. You're always so withholding, son. Family needs communication. Zach adjusted his fake Rolex and launched into his pitch. Bro, it's just one Christmas. We're trying to land a partnership here. Brooke lined up a photographer, food stylist, the whole production. This is our shot. Kid noise ruins content. You can drop the kids at their dad's and come through for an hour or two. Christmas with their father isn't a negotiable aesthetic choice, I said. They're my kids. Brooke stepped forward, voice artificially pleasant. Look, we're building something here. You're an art director. You get it. The feed has to feel cohesive. We can do a separate kid-friendly thing after New Year's, something low-key. That's when I saw it in Mom's eyes, that calculating look I recognized from every family financial crisis. There's also a budget component, she said, finally revealing the real agenda. We're spreading ourselves thin, hosting is expensive, and we'd appreciate some help. You've always been so generous. How much? I asked directly. Don't be crass, Mom snapped, then immediately quoted a number. $2,000 would take the pressure off. Food, flowers, maybe a small stipend for the photographer. We want to do this right, and we want you there. Just you, though, Brooke emphasized, without the kids. That's when Theo padded into the hallway behind me, hair wild from his nap, clutching his stuffed triceratops. He blinked at the group of adults like they were exotic, slightly threatening birds. Pancakes? He asked hopefully. Brooke's smile faltered for the first time. She looked down at her designer boots with something that might have been shame. I turned my body so Theo couldn't see their faces. Go sit at the table, buddy. I'll make them in a minute. As he trotted back to the kitchen, I faced the family tribunal again. Let me think about it, I said calmly. Today would be best, Mom pressed. We have deposits due. Zach lifted his chin in that way he does when he thinks he's being inspiring. Friends don't let friends miss opportunities. Family, Dad corrected automatically. Family, Zach agreed, like he'd invented the concept. I nodded slowly. Right, family. Then I closed the door. I leaned my forehead against the wood and listened to my pulse while processing what had just happened. In the kitchen, Mia was humming Jingle Bells off-key while rifling through the sprinkles drawer, and Theo drummed the table with a spoon. The house sounded like life. Messy, joyful, real life. My phone buzzed with a group chat notification. Family, immediate. Mom had renamed it last year, right after I'd paid Dad's surprise $3,800 tax bill. Mom, Levi, please don't be difficult about this. Dad, we need a decision by 3 p.m. Zach, Venmo works fine. Then Brooke started sending inspiration photos, 3 beige squares showcasing a white tablecloth, white candles, and a bowl of bleached pine cones that looked like bones in a medical textbook. I opened my Photos app and scrolled to a folder I keep labeled Receipts. Not for revenge, for memory. For moments like this when I need to see patterns clearly instead of through the lens of family obligation. Screenshots of every financial favor. Dad's contractor fine, Zach's car, the iPad for Mom, groceries that mysteriously disappeared from their porch and reappeared in their fridge, the phone plan, streaming services, software licenses, emergency car repairs, minor home improvements that became major expenses. I created a grid of these receipts and dropped it into the family chat. Me, just a reminder of our financial history. Mom replied in under 10 seconds, tacky. Zach, we said we'd pay you back. Me, you also said that about the Shopify site, the photo equipment rental, the Adobe charges, and the phone bill that's been on auto pay for 4 months. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Brooke finally typed, using money as leverage over family is not the vibe. I stared at that sentence until the words went blurry. Then something clicked. Not a fresh realization, but an old truth I'd been ignoring. Boundaries aren't mean. They're honest. I typed carefully, I'm not paying $2,000 for a photographer to document my children's absence. Silence in the chat. Then my phone rang. Mom, of course. I let it go to voicemail. She texted instead, you're blowing this out of proportion. Be an adult. Me. I am being an adult. Here's what's changing. Standing at my kitchen counter with sticky kid hands tugging at my shirt, I wrote out the new family policy in clear, professional language. I'm removing you from my phone plan at the end of this billing cycle. I'll send the transfer PIN. I'm changing my Adobe password and will report any unauthorized usage as software piracy. Zach, stop using my professional licenses. All streaming accounts will be logged out today. You can set up your own. I won't be funding events that my children and I are explicitly uninvited from. If anyone attempts to add charges to my business accounts again, I will file a fraud report with my bank and the police. I hit send and waited. Dad, those sound like threats. Me, those are boundaries. Zach, dude, you're blowing up Christmas over $2,000? Me, you blew up Christmas when you made my kids unwelcome. I'm just responding to information. Mom, you're making this hostile. Your children are going to hear about this. I looked at Mia's face, still dusted with powdered sugar from her experimental baking project, and felt something solid settle in my chest. No, I said out loud to the empty room. They're going to hear that I protected them. The doorbell rang again. I opened it to find all 4 of them on my porch, huddled tighter now, winter air pouring around their edges like they were characters in a dramatic movie scene. Mom started to launch into what was clearly a prepared speech, but I held up my hand. I'm done, I said calmly. Done being the bank, done being the unpaid creative department, done being the silent one who absorbs everyone else's problems. You can host whatever Christmas you want. White tables, no kids, content creation, whatever makes you happy. But not with my money. And if you ever try to exclude my children so you can look more aesthetically pleasing online, you exclude me too. Zach's jaw flexed. You'd really blow up Christmas over a vibe? You blew up Christmas when you made family love conditional on Instagram compatibility. Brooke lifted her phone like a shield. This is completely unhinged. Then don't depend on unhinged people to fund your lifestyle. Dad tried the soft manipulation approach. Levi, son, think about the bigger picture here. I am thinking about the bigger picture, I said. and my kids are in it. I closed the door and turned the deadbolt. The house felt remarkably quiet after that. Not sad quiet, but clear quiet. Like when a client finally approves a design concept and all the noise in your head stops. I made pancakes with extra butter. Mia overdid the sprinkles until they looked like colorful snow. Theo insisted on arranging his into a Christmas dinosaur made from banana slices and mini chocolate chips. We watched the terrible stop-motion Christmas special from the 1970s where the snow looks like shredded coconut. We cut paper snowflakes that looked more like abstract art than anything found in nature. The kids were louder than any content creation could bear, and it sounded exactly like safety. My phone became a slot machine of notifications throughout the day. Messages pinged constantly. Mom, what you're doing is cruel. Dad, you owe us a conversation. Zach, adult men don't act like this. Brooke, this is unbelievable. Then texts started coming from numbers I didn't have saved, flying monkeys deployed to make me feel guilty. Maybe tone it down? Your mom is really upset. Kids make everything complicated, but family is family. You're being pretty harsh over a holiday thing. The subtext hummed through every message. Be small again. Make yourself convenient. Stop having boundaries that inconvenience us. At noon, the first real consequence hit, and it wasn't mine. Dad texted, "Our phones aren't working. Is this you?" I hadn't even cut them off yet. Curious, I called the wireless provider. Turns out Zach had tried to order an iPhone 15 Pro upgrade on my account at 3 a.m. And when the SIM transfer process began, it automatically deactivated Mom's device due to a security protocol. The representative asked me to confirm the shipping address for the new phone. It was Zach's apartment. I canceled the order immediately, triggered a fraud alert on my account, and instructed them to flag any future changes as account owner authorization required with photo ID verification. I texted the family group, "Nice try with the phone upgrade, Zach. Order canceled, fraud alert filed." Then I sent a screenshot of the attempted purchase. Zach, "Wow, petty." Me, "Actually, that's called felony fraud, but sure, let's call it petty." By late afternoon, I got an email notification from Adobe. New sign-in detected from Zach City. I immediately hit sign out all devices, changed my password to something impossible to guess, and enabled two-factor authentication with my physical security key. I messaged Zach separately. "If you need design software, you can purchase your own license like every other professional creative." He replied with a vomiting emoji. Around 5 p.m., my doorbell rang again. This time it was just Brooke, looking significantly less put together than before. Her beige coat was wrinkled, her hair was escaping its perfect styling, and her cheeks were pink from the cold. "I don't want to make a scene," she said quietly. "Then stop showing up at my door, uninvited," I replied. She glanced past me to where the kids were dancing to Jingle Bell Rock at a volume that probably violated noise ordinances. "Look, I get that you're protective of them, but you're seriously tanking something big here. A lifestyle brand reached out about featuring our dinner. They specifically requested clean, minimalist family content. Toddlers with sticky hands don't fit that aesthetic." "They're not toddlers," I corrected. "And they're not props for your personal brand." "I didn't mean—" She trailed off, looking genuinely conflicted for the first time. "Your family, they're very good at making people feel guilty for having boundaries." That caught me off guard. "You just figured that out?" Something shifted in her expression. Not agreement exactly, but recognition. She looked at Mia's construction paper chain again, this time without the earlier disdain. "You could still style the kid-friendly event," she offered weakly. "Make it look intentional." "We already styled it," I said, gesturing toward Mia, who was wearing 3 different patterns and a grin that could power a small city. "And it's perfect exactly as it is." Brooke swallowed hard. "We won't ask you for money again," she said, already turning to leave. "I know," I replied, "because I won't be answering." That night, after the kids were in bed, Mia asked in a very small voice, "Did we do something wrong? Grandma said we were too much." My brain went completely white with protective rage. I sat on the floor so we were at eye level. "You are loud," I said carefully, "and silly and brilliant and absolutely not designed for anyone else's brand aesthetic. Someone made a grown-up choice that wasn't kind, and that's entirely their problem, not yours." She nodded thoughtfully, then climbed into my lap. Theo crawled across the rug and piled on top of us. We became a tangle of limbs and love, and I made a new rule in my bones. The second anyone makes my children think their natural joy is a character flaw, we're done with that person. Far away at the white-on-white dinner that I wasn't funding, Mom posted Instagram stories of artfully arranged candles that I couldn't see because I'd unfollowed her months ago. A cousin DM'd me screenshots anyway. The table looked like a hospital had decided to celebrate Christmas. Sterile, cold, and completely lifeless. In one photo of Zach giving a toast, you could see the reflection in a serving spoon. Empty spaces where children should have been, standing on tiptoes to blow out candles. The next morning brought the predictable financial crisis. Mom called at 7 a.m., voice pitched to maximum martyrdom. We had to put the catering on our credit card because you wouldn't help. The bank flagged it as unusual activity, and now we're over limit. I'm sorry you planned an event you couldn't afford, I said calmly. You need to reimburse us for the difference, she demanded, as if that's what adult children do when their parents can't manage basic budgeting. No, she inhaled sharply. Your father is very disappointed in you. Dad got on the line with his prepared guilt trip. Your brother stepped up, you know. He covered the photographer out of his own pocket. My phone pinged with a notification during the call. Zach had sent me a payment request for $1,850 with the memo, Christmas team effort, your share. I actually laughed out loud. I'm not joining your Christmas bankruptcy co-op, I told them. You'll regret alienating your family like this, Dad said, his voice dropping to that threatening tone he uses when manipulation fails. I regret all the years I didn't spend with my kids because I was too busy fixing your preventable financial emergencies, I replied, then hung up. By noon, the Flying Monkey Brigade was in full effect. Mom's drama-addicted friend posted a Facebook status about ungrateful children who abandon their elders in their time of need. A cousin sent me a private message. You okay? People are being pretty wild about this whole thing. Also, Zach tried to borrow my camera equipment yesterday. And when I said no, he told me I owed him for all the free brand consulting he's given me over the years. Thought you should know. I sent her back a single skull emoji. At 3 p.m., there was a different knock at my door. Not Brooke, not my parents, Aunt Linda, my dad's sister, and the family's quiet rebel, holding a bag of gingerbread cookies and wearing an expression I hadn't seen on a relative's face in years. Respect. I told your mother she was completely out of line, she said, stepping out of her boots without invitation. She said you were being cruel to the family. I told her you were being honest, and that's not the same thing. She handed Mia the gingerbread and Theo a pack of glow sticks. Merry actual Christmas, little ones. Linda stayed for exactly 1 hour. She didn't try to fix anything or mediate or convince me to think of the family. She just listened while the kids showed off their paper snowflakes and asked me how I was holding up. When she left, I stood on the porch in the early winter dark and realized I felt genuinely light for the first time in months. Not happy exactly, but unhooked from a weight I'd been carrying for years. The practical work came next. I moved my business banking to a completely different institution and closed the credit card that Zach had somehow figured out how to use through Save Browser autofill. I put a credit freeze on all my accounts and set up fraud monitoring that would text me about any unusual activity. I removed my parents from my phone plan and texted them the account transfer PIN with instructions, exactly as promised. Mom wrote back, "We can't figure this out. It's too complicated." I replied with a screenshot of the carrier's step-by-step tutorial. Dad texted, "We're too old for this technology stuff." I wrote back, "You figured out how to use Instagram for the dinner photos. You're capable of following directions." They didn't appreciate my confidence in their abilities. I gathered up every piece of equipment that had been borrowed indefinitely. The spare iPad, my backup DSLR camera, the ring light Brooke had left after that awful brunch. Everything went into a trash bag, which I drove to their house and left on the porch with a note. Returning borrowed items. Please return my peace of mind by respecting my boundaries. A neighbor saw me dropping off the bag. "Merry Christmas," he called cheerfully. "Working on it," I called back. That night, while the kids slept tangled together in one bed, because it felt safer after the day's excitement, I opened my laptop and created a private folder labeled Documentation. Not because I was planning some elaborate revenge scheme, but because clarity beats gaslighting every time. Screenshots, dates, payment records, the two $18 template bundle charge, the attempted iPhone fraud, the payment request for Christmas expenses, the perfect image text thread. I didn't need to send it to anyone. I just needed to see the pattern laid out in one place, undeniable and clear. No, I hadn't been imagining the financial abuse. No, I wasn't overreacting to normal family dynamics. This was a systematic pattern of exploitation, disguised as obligation. Christmas morning arrived with Mia whispering urgently in my ear at, "Dad, it's snowing!" It wasn't really sticking, just wet, half-hearted flakes that melted on impact. We still ran outside in pajamas and winter boots, and Theo licked a snowflake off the mailbox and declared it minty fresh. I made cinnamon rolls from the can that came out uneven and absolutely perfect. We opened presents slowly, savoring each moment instead of photographing it. I took exactly 2 photos all morning, both for my own memory, not for anyone else's approval. Around noon, I got a final text from Brooke. For the record, I didn't know about all the money requests. That's not my lane, and I'm sorry I said that thing about your kids ruining the brand. I said something cruel because I was nervous about fitting in with your family. I'm rethinking some things now. I typed and deleted 3 different replies before settling on, "Good luck with that process." January brought the kind of gray winter light that makes you take inventory of what you kept from the holidays besides leftover cookies. I kept 2 things, a completely clear calendar and a completely clear conscience. Mom made 3 more attempts at reconciliation, but they all sounded like project management rather than actual remorse. We should schedule a Sunday dinner to discuss expectations going forward. Your father misses you and thinks we need to establish better communication protocols. The family needs to work through this conflict constructively. I replied to exactly one of these messages. When you're ready to apologize to my children for making them feel unwelcome in their own family, we can talk. Not before. The response was complete silence. Zach posted a carousel of photos from the white-on-white dinner with a caption about grinding with my day ones and multiple prayer hands emojis. The comments were predictably shallow. Goals! So aesthetic. Perfect vibes. I scrolled past without engaging. He texted me directly a week later. "Brooke and I are taking a break. Hope you're happy now." I stared at that message until it physically shrunk on my screen, then put my phone face down and spent the evening building a Lego spaceship with Theo that looked like a cross between a toaster and a fighter jet. We decided it was perfect exactly as it was. At work, I stopped staying late to fix other people's preventable mistakes and started training my junior designer properly instead of just correcting her errors at 11 p.m. When a project manager tried to turn his personal preference into an emergency deadline, I calmly explained the difference between urgency and convenience. My supervisor asked if everything was okay. Apparently, setting boundaries looks like confidence from the outside. "I'm really good, actually," I told her, and meant it completely. Mia asked if we'd be going to Grandma's house again soon. I told her we could invite Grandma here anytime she wanted to apologize for making them feel unwelcome. "Will she?" Mia asked with 7-year-old directness. "People can surprise you," I said, "but we're not going to wait around hoping they will." 3 months later, Dad finally broke the silence with a grudging text. "Your mother wants to try again. Sunday dinner. Bring the kids." I took a deep breath and typed back, "We'll visit for 1 hour. If anyone mentions money, Instagram, or implies that my children need to change who they are to be acceptable, we leave immediately." He wrote back, "Fine." No emoji, no pleasantries, but it felt like progress disguised as grumpiness. We went. Mom had clearly practiced her apology in the mirror. It came out stilted but genuine enough. She knelt down to Mia and Theo's level and said the only words that mattered. "I made a mistake. I'm sorry I made you feel like you weren't wanted." I watched my kids' faces as they processed this. They forgave instantly because children's default setting is forgiveness and love. I let my shoulders drop exactly 1 inch. Not all the way, but enough to acknowledge the effort. Zach wasn't there. "He's busy with work," Mom said vaguely. I didn't ask for details. We stayed for exactly 1 hour. We ate adequately dry cookies and took home leftovers we actually wanted. When Mom started to circle around to topics like family vacation planning, and shared expenses, I stood up, smiled, and said, "We're heading out now. No drama, no explanations, just the boundary, cleanly maintained." We left at the 59-minute mark because sometimes keeping promises to yourself requires a timer. At bedtime that night, Mia asked what the moral of Christmas had been this year. She asks this about everything, like life is one long fable, and I'm some wise owl character dispensing lessons. I tucked her in and thought about white candles and payment requests and construction paper chains and banana-sliced dinosaurs. "The moral," I said, "is that real love isn't a filter. It's messy and loud and joyful, and it doesn't ask you to make yourself smaller to fit in someone else's picture. If people say you need to shrink to be acceptable, you don't shrink. You find people who celebrate your actual size." She nodded like this was obvious common sense. "And we're keeping our paper chain up until summer," she declared. "Deal," I said. I turned off the light and stood in the doorway for an extra moment, letting the quiet settle around us. Then, I went to the kitchen, opened the cabinet where we keep the everyday bowls, and read the list I'd taped inside like a daily prayer. I don't pay to be treated badly. My kids are not negotiable. No is a complete sentence. Family is a verb, not a noun. For the first time in years, I mean every word completely.